Okay, so the fifth installment of the Russian Revolution guide. We need to look at Rasputin. Okay, he is a fascinating figure. When I was at high school, my history teacher seemed to border on some bizarre fascination with the man. He was her favorite topic. So we all left school, marched into our GCSEs with a head full of knowledge about Rasputin and not much else. But anyway, some of us survived, just about. Anyway, who is he? Why is he so famous? How come he's got such an awesome beard? And these are the questions we need to focus on. So, as we know, as you know from last lesson, World War One is going terribly badly for the Russians and for the Tsar. He has taken personal command of the army. He left Petrograd to go to the front. I've written Moscow there because I'm an idiot. Look at that. I need to change that. In the copy you see, it shall be changed. Moscow does not become the capital city of Russia until much later. Until a bit later. So he actually is leaving Petrograd to go to the front. So he leaves his wife, Alexandra, in charge as regent. Okay, regent is a word you will see time and time again in history. It is the name for somebody that is basically the king or the queen when the real king or queen is not there. So she's in charge, but there's big problems with this. Okay, number one, she's German. Russia's fighting a war against Germany right now. The Russians don't like the Germans, so they don't like her. They think she's basically a German spy and that she's giving the Germans information and she's deliberately sabotaging the Russian war effort. So, they're losing the war. Her husband is losing the war, and some Russian people begin to blame her, think she's responsible for this. She wants the Germans to win. So that is not going well for her. But things get worse. And it is to do with her poor son, okay? Prince Alexis, who is not very well, okay? He's born with hemophilia, so it means if his blood will not clot, which is an incredibly dangerous condition to have, because it means that the slightest cut, bump, or bruise could be fatal. So children and people, adults with this condition, virtually do need to be wrapped up in cotton wool to, make sure they are okay. So she has, she obviously deeply loves her son, and at the time, medical science can't really give her much help. It's a condition that doesn't really have a cure. So she instead turns to this religious mystic called Rasputin, which explains his incredibly mystic beard. He comes in and promises her that he can cure her son through rituals and prayers. And she buys into this because she's desperate. She loves her son so much, she's willing to listen to anybody that can promise help. And so Rasputin's a very controversial character in history. Lots of people think he was just kind of playing her along, lying to her, a bit of a fraudster, a trickster that had kind of weaseled his way into the royal family and suddenly become important and influential. And so not only does she like him because he promises to help her son, but she then becomes to rely on him for all kinds of advice. And so many people think that basically you've got this crazy mystic guy advising this German lady who wants Russia to lose anyway, and they are now in charge of the country because the real Tsar is away fighting a war. And so people are really unhappy with this, and their reputation is in tatters. So what happens? Well, Eventually, 1916, Rasputin disappears and ends up dead. His body is found beaten and stabbed and trapped beneath ice in the Neva River. So, not a happy ending for Rasputin. When Alexandra finds out, she's devastated. She's inside the Winter Palace, crying her eyes out. Outside in the streets, people are having a party because they're really happy that he's gone. Who killed him? No one knows for sure, although almost every historian writing about it thinks the evidence points towards a conspiracy between some of Russia's traditional aristocracy, friends of the Tsar who didn't like Alexandra or Rasputin. They think they got together and arranged his murder. They might not have done it themselves, they might have paid some other people to do it, but they think they're the ones behind his murder. So Rasputin is important to look at in the context of the First World War and Russia because he destroys the reputation of Alexandra and the Tsar by association. So he is an important figure. He helps contribute to the Russian people's anger with the way things are, and particularly with the Tsar. So, a couple of questions for you to have a go at there, and there's an activity on the next slide. Good luck, and hope it helps.